Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another beautiful video where we are taking a look at this construction that we have here. So we basically have two input curves which we can adjust manually. Then we have an amount of a structure here, then a certain overlap which is happening as well, then the thickness obviously, and the distance in between those points as well. And we can obviously manipulate the input curve just the way we want based on this image. So let's get into it. Great, so we will just start with a new file in order for you to understand how this thing works from the beginning until the end. So we can know how that works. So we just start a new file here, and this, you can ignore that. So we've drawn two curves, right? This one over here and this one over there in the Rhine environment. Just draw them, very easy to do. And then we just put them one like that and the other one a little bit like to a 90-degree angle. So then we use the, we double click the canvas here and we use curve, right click, set curve and put this curve in. And then we also do the same thing again, double click it, right click, set one curve and put this one in here. Great, so now we have two curves that we want to basically put together. Just to draw this out so it can kind of make more sense. So we just have this one curve here, right? And the other one curve here. Then there will be a surface made in between those, like here, like a surface will be created. And this will then also be divided in separate pieces. So then there will be like one here and one here, and we will place some rectangles on there as well. But also with those rectangles, they have to be a certain distance as well. Keep in mind, this is just a very basic way to do it. There are also more advanced ways to do it, but we just want to keep it in a more simple way so you can try and learn Grasshopper and integrate it in your workflow. So great, now we have those two curves, and then we go to surface, freeform, and then we use some surface. So we use the first curve here and the second curve here. So this will create us already this curve that we now have here. I will just move those two up a little bit so it doesn't get stuck in our canvas here. Great, now that we have that, we want to make contour lines. We can also divide the surface, but this will be a little bit tricky, so we just want to make sure that there will be even things dividing the curve. So we're gonna use the way of contour. So this one is the one here. This will be our base shape, and the point that we're gonna use has to be not this point 0, 0 here, but we want to use the end point of the longer curve that we're gonna use. So this one here, and then the end point, I think it's this one. We have to take it from here, and the direction will be, in this case, I think the y direction is in that direction. So we use unit y, and then we also will set a distance as well to it. Great, and as you see, it basically, from that point here, this here, it will take slices one after the other, as you see. Great, now that we have that defined, I just want to make this a little bit wider. Now that we have that defined, we want to evaluate certain points on this spectrum as well. So we can just divide the surface, but we're actually going to use a bit more sophisticated one. We're just going to use evaluate surface, and we're going to evaluate the surface here. So just the curve, the curve, and from the contour lines here, but we have to have a parameter as well. So we're going to create a range of parameters like here with the domain, and this domain goes from 0 to 1, and the steps are normally 10, but we're going to use like 11, cause 11, you know. And you see, it just creates something here in the beginning, and this is not really something that we want at all. So we're gonna right click and reparameterize it. And you see, this will then gives us like the curve. Normally, those parameters are defined by the length of the curve, and that way the curve will be a distance of basically 0, or a distance of 1. So the endpoint will be 1 and the start point will be 0. Great. Now that we have that defined, we have our little points here. And now we want to create a plane on that curve, like this one here. Wait, we will go to vector and then plane, and then we're actually gonna use the plane normal. It just wants to have a z-axis and an origin point, and we're gonna use the origin point of this one here and the tangent of that point as well. Well, this will create something more or less like that. But we can actually maybe also create it with the other one. So let me actually take a quick look how I made it before here, because I think there I did it with the other way around. Ah no, I actually didn't create a surface at all. We can actually do that as well. It might be like more simpler for you to understand. So not that you're bad or something, but just like, you know, just get the basics to know grasshopper and stuff like this is a very good way. And so we use the point here, and then we're gonna use a shift list command, and we're gonna use so we're shifting list one point to the next one, and we're gonna use the point here, and then we're also gonna use the point over there as the other points. And you see it creates those little points in between, like these lines. But also we also have this line here in the end of it that we don't want, so we're just gonna go on right click and set this to false, because otherwise it will wrap around. In this case it will not wrap around, so it just goes from 0, 1 to 3 and it goes to the end then again. But this one, it just doesn't do that. So great, now we have those points. We actually want to there will be like a little bit complicated part coming up as well, but this is gonna be fine. And we're gonna use just a simple we were gonna sort out those things, because if we take a look at the image, you see there are like this certain, like there are like it's always that like then one is taken and the next one is taken and the next one is taken, and the other one in between, they're basically like this here and this like here, right? So we want to make it that it will work that way. So we have to basically use a dispatch and of this list here. And when we use the geometry, you will see it does dispatch them. And we're just gonna hide those with Ctrl Q. But it just dispatches like only those ones. But we want to have them sometimes dispatched like this and sometimes dispatched like that. So there are several ways how to do it, but in our case, we will just use the tree statistics of this one. So we're just gonna use we'll make a new list, which basically takes true false in this case, and then also false true. So we're gonna first we'll create this little list. So we're gonna set the panel here, and then say true, false, and then the next one will be basically false, true. And this now will be our like basic way of how we will define this pattern here. And in order to get the list length of the pattern that we are having, we have to use the length of this pattern. However, if we're just gonna use list length, like that, list length, and we will take this one in, we have the problem that there will be just a lot of ones, because each of those lists is just gonna be one long. So we want to have the tree structure of it to be that list length. So we're gonna use tree statistics, and this will give us the count of our tree here. So we're gonna use, you see this, we will have basically 27 contour lines around here. We obviously could also just flatten this one with flatten and then use the same, because then it would be just one big thing. But this might be the better solution in our case here, because if there's some weird janking way happening, this will make it more clear. Great, now that we have that, we want to repeat this data of this list to be as long as the params here. And because we were always, and in this case, if we're just gonna use that and put it in here, we also need to disable multi-line data in order for it to be booleans. This doesn't really give us the result that we want, because we also need to partition it into those sizes of 2, because we have only like a true and a false, right? And put this in here. And you see, this will as well give us not the real result that we want to have, because right now it will only create 27 values, but we need to have double than that, because each of those values gets like used like once, so we have to have it as twice as long. So we're just gonna go on length, right click, click on expression, and then do x times 2. And this will then fill the whole thing up, because it will be twice as long in this case. Great, now that we have those defined here, we can do an extend curve. And this will then make this curve a little bit longer. And in that case, we can also make it shorter. So just go to -1, bigger than small than this. And we just use this at the start and the end points. And why does it give me this error? Negative, it's too much negative. And you see it then creates this curve here. It will give us this error, but it will still work, however, if we go in the negative. But we will want to go in the positive anyway, so that's fine. Great, now that we have that defined, we just want to create those rectangles as well, because it's just like, right now they're just lines, but we also want to have the rectangles in between that as well. So we're gonna go to the curve, primitive, and then there is a way of using this like rectangle 3 points, or we can, no, we actually want to use the rectangle. I think the rectangle 3 points. There are always several ways to do it, but in this case, we're just going to use that one just for showing purposes. So we are going to use the endpoints of those curves here, and then we're going to use those as a start and as a point A and a point B, and then point C is not really defined because we need to basically move this point over there so it basically matches. It will basically be on the same space as the other one. So we're going to use shift pattern, oh no, not shift, we're going to use move, and we're going to move this endpoint or start point, doesn't really matter, by the Y direction that we defined here. By the Y direction, and we define it by the distance of our contour lines. So that then will move this point exactly under that other line here. So we're just going to remove this here. And as you see, this will create our very nice rectangles here. You have to keep in mind, if those are a little bit mixed up, you might get weird results like that. As you see, those might, so you need to have it in the order correctly. So those 2 points will basically define the lines where it starts, and then the last point, the C point, will define the point where it needs to basically extrude more or less to. Great, now that we have that, we're just gonna use box rectangle, and we're gonna use also a certain height in that as well. So we can adjust this as well like that. Great, and now I will just hide those other things as well a little bit. And we just use also a custom preview as well, like that. And we will choose a color of maybe like white. And then we have our very nice things defined here. And you can obviously now you can name all your things as well, so you don't get too confused in your definition like way of doing it. And yeah, and now you can just adjust them as you want to see them fit and increase them, decrease them. Have the height like that, and obviously change the size of it as well, so it fits exactly what you want to do. That's great. Yeah, you can also actually like put in any other surface, as long as it would be like an untrimmed surface and has like two clear lines. It should work rather well. Great, yeah. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope this helped you, and yeah, see you next one and have a great time.